Welcome to Edison Open House Global Healthcare 2022. In this session, we're going to look at the work of Avalo, a US-based biopharma using a precision medicine approach for conditions with high unmet needs. With me is its CEO, Mike Kohler. Mike, hello.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. So tell us a bit more about Avalo.
Yeah, as you said, we're a precision medicine company. We've been around for the last 2 years working on multiple programs, mostly in the area of immunology, immuno-oncology, and rare and orphan diseases. We generally have first-in-class molecules with targeted mechanisms of action. We believe that really enhances our benefit-risk profile on our programs. And our precision medicine approach is based on biomarkers that we think are predictive of response in these patients.
And roughly how many programs have you got running at the moment?
Yeah, we have 6 molecules, 8 programs, and a dense set of milestones for the year 2022. Again, 2 large molecules. These are monoclonal antibodies, 002 and 007. 1 small molecule that is 006, an mTOR1/2, and then we have 3 programs in ultra-orphan diseases. These are congenital disorders of glycosylation. That is 801, 802, and 803.
That's quite a lot of programs for a company of your size. Which one do you think that investors, or which ones do you think investors should be focusing on most?
Well, I think there's a bit of a recency effect because investors are interested in data per se, not necessarily your pipeline or molecules. And most of the data readouts that we've had over the last year have been on 002 and 007. So investors tend to focus on what you put in front of them, but those are 2 potentially very large programs that have multiple indications, potential pipelines within a single product, both of them.
Now, I mentioned unmet need, and I know that one of the disease areas that you're looking at is Crohn's, which has actually quite a number of recent drugs for Crohn's that have been introduced to the market. So where are you different, and where is the unmet need for Crohn's?
As you say, there's been tremendous advancement in Crohn's and ulcerative colitis over the last 10, 15 years with many new mechanisms and several new biologics. The unfortunate reality is that most of those patients don't respond to the molecules themselves, and the ones that do respond eventually fail after 3 years. So if you think of, for example, anti-TNF alphas, which is kind of standard of care for moderate to severe, you have maybe a 55% response rate initially, and after 3 years, those responders are about half of them are not responding, and then you move on to the next drug and the next drug. So even though we have many more options than we've had in the past, unfortunately, there's still a lot of opportunity for a new product coming into the market. Because there's so many patients that are refractory to the current therapies.
And how big would you say that market is? Because Crohn's is not an uncommon disease.
Yeah, I mean, it's a large market and it's been growing. I mean, we think of that in the US as somewhere between maybe an 11 and $12 billion market. But of course, we're not going to try to capture that entire market. We're looking at the moderate to severe, and at least initially, we would be looking at refractory patients, refractory to anti-TNF alphas at least.
And you've had some really encouraging data in Crohn's. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. The Crohn's program was an 8-patient open-label trial where we had 50% of the patients respond to therapy in a very short time period, 8 weeks. At a relatively low dose, which is a good sign. The remarkable thing to me, having looked at Crohn's for quite a long time now, is that the majority of those patients had at least 2 or 3 failures on biologics and some 4. So they've been highly refractory to existing therapies. and we still had a reasonably high response rate in a very short period of time at a very low dose. So that's kind of the top line. The study does have limitations in that it's open label. And as I said, the course of therapy was relatively short. We were able to follow up with the responders, and 3 of the 4 responders actually went back to doing poorly after the drug was removed. And that shows you that our drug was having a clinical benefit. We do think there's a strong signal here of efficacy in these patients, and the safety profile was excellent for this trial, consistent with the data that we generated for ARDS last year.
But do you think that this drug, that people will become refractory to your drug as well? Or is that something that's yet to be teased out?
Yeah, I mean, we have a long way to go on this program, but I would just say that the immune system somehow adapts to all of these drugs. It would be remarkable if we didn't have patients that eventually didn't end up refractory to our drug. But again, we would like to add this to the armamentarium of therapies for physicians.
Certainly a growing market with more and more people being diagnosed with Crohn's for some reason that we're not entirely sure why that should be the case. But tell us now what milestones investors should be focused on in the next year. It sounds like you've got a very packed and exciting program ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, as I said at the top, we have a very significant number of program readouts this year. Starting with the extension of the existing Crohn's trial, we have a 6-patient ulcerative colitis cohort that should be reading out in the 3rd quarter. And again, it'll give us information as to how we design our IBD program. Most companies have looked at UC as the first indication in IBD, because less heterogeneous patients, easier to recruit. So that'll be important data to us. We also, at our Investor Day last week, talked about the expansion into non-eosinophilic asthma. This will be a real proof of concept, 80 patients, randomized, placebo-controlled, and that data should be reading out in the second half of 22. We didn't talk too much about our rare disease programs, but we also have a readout coming on adult onset Still's disease, a relatively rare autoimmune disorder.
It's kind of a rheumatic disorder, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And 5,000 to 7,000 in the US and similar in Europe. We expect data for both the high and low cohorts by the middle of the year. And then our small molecule program in complex lymphatic malformations, again, mid-year. And finally, our ultra-orphan program, 803 for LAD2, that data is coming in the 3rd quarter of 22.
And that's one of these glycosylation disorders, isn't it?
It is. These are ultra rare diseases. There is a mutation that affects an enzyme and doesn't allow the enzyme to glycosylate properly. So even though you're producing a protein, without the glycosylation pattern, the body can't use it properly. And so you see, depending on which one of these proteins is affected, you see some pretty significant disease. But that's the year for us. I mean, again, for a company our size, it is a significant density of milestones that we're looking at.
And one of the great things about your company is the very close association you have with the Philadelphia Children's Hospital, where you will find the experts on these, for instance, these glycosylation disorders.
That's correct. I mean, we have some of the world's experts on rare and orphan diseases at CHOP. 10% of North American rare and orphan patients end up at CHOP because of their clinical and scientific capabilities. And we've had a productive relationship with them over the years. We partner with their Center for Applied Genomics, which has the world's largest pediatric biobank, which gives us a repository of tissue for us to test in vitro assays.
It's very good to hear, and it's going to be a great year, I suspect, for you ahead. So thank you very much for talking to us.
Oh, greatly appreciate it. Great talking with you. Thank you.